So, imagine for a second that you possess this, like, completely free, highly accessible tool,
Right.
and it could instantly de-escalate, the angriest person in your office.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, a tool that relies entirely on how you format a single sentence, or even the microscopic choices you make when you just walk into a room.
Yeah, the stuff modern behavioral scientists are, always studying to understand trust and cooperation.
Exactly. But the fascinating thing is, the stack of notes and articles you sent us for this deep dive suggests this isn't a new science at all.
No, not at all.
You've actually handed us a blueprint that is roughly 2,500 years old. We're looking at a framework from Buddhist philosophy known as Sanghavathu 4.
Which is quite a mouthful, but
Right, but we are absolutely not treating this like some dusty, esoteric religious text. Okay, let's unpack this, because the sources you curated translate this framework as the literal social glue that binds people together.
yeah, the social glue. I mean, it is a remarkable set of documents you've provided us.
It really is. It's like this incredibly practical toolkit for manufacturing harmony in the most frustrating, mundane moments of daily life.
And what really strikes me as we go through your notes is the profound pragmatism of it all. You know, these four principles, Dana, Piyavaka, Ethikaria, and Samanatata.
Because usually when we think about ancient Eastern philosophy, we picture like grand acts.
Right, like retreating to a mountaintop or
Yeah.
meditating for a decade or giving away every worldly possession.
Yeah, exactly.
But this framework ignores the mountaintop entirely. It zeroes in on the granular daily friction of human interaction.
Like the break room or traffic.
Exactly. It argues that the fabric of society isn't held together by massive treaties. It's held together by the quiet choices we make in our email outboxes. It's driven entirely by applied empathy.
Right. It's the idea of getting out of the abstract and into the, messy reality of sharing space with other humans.
Yeah.
So if we look at this as actual social glue, the first thing you need to do to glue two things together is create a point of contact, right?
You have to bridge that gap between me and you.
Yes, and your research points to the first principle as the initiator of that bond. It's called Dana, which translates to giving.
Giving, right.
Now, I have to admit, my immediate modern bias when I read giving was purely financial.
Oh, sure. Charity.
Yeah, like donating old coats or writing a check to a nonprofit.
And that is the reflex for most of us. And sharing physical resources is definitely a foundational layer. The texts mention simple material generosity.
Like bringing home a family member's favorite treat.
Exactly. Or giving unused items to someone in need. But, if we limit Dana to just material transactions, we miss the psychological mechanism that actually creates the social glue.
Wait, really? So it goes beyond physical stuff?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
The sources expand, giving far beyond the physical. It includes giving your time, giving your knowledge, giving sound advice.
Oh, wow.
And perhaps the most psychologically demanding of all, giving forgiveness.
Wow. Giving forgiveness as an active form of charity that completely flips the paradigm for me.
It does, doesn't it?
It moves giving from like an external transaction of wealth to this internal surrender of a grievance.
Exactly. Because what is the underlying mechanism of Dana? The text suggests it's not primarily about the receiver.
Oh, who is it about them?
What's fascinating here is that it's designed to fundamentally conquer the giver's internal selfishness first.
Huh. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Think about the workplace examples highlighted in your notes. Bringing a box of donuts for the morning meeting is nice.
It leverages the basic human psychology of reciprocity.
Right. But the text explicitly calls out knowledge sharing as a profound act of Dana, like proactively teaching a colleague a software trick or, a workflow shortcut.
Yeah, that makes their job easier. I found that example so compelling because I view it through the lens of open source software.
Oh, I like that comparison.
Right. In the tech world, a developer could hoard a brilliant piece of code. They could keep it proprietary just to ensure they're the smartest person in the room.
Which is basically a defense mechanism.
Exactly. It's driven by insecurity. If I share this, I lose my competitive edge. But when they make it open source, they give away the fundamental architecture of their success.
They let anyone use it and improve it.
Yeah. By freely sharing that knowledge, the entire ecosystem upgrades. The office runs infinitely smoother because you haven't just helped one person.
You've elevated the collective capability.
Exactly.
That is the exact dynamic at play here. You are releasing the source code of your own security to benefit the community.
Which is super hard to do.
It is. Overcoming that initial friction, that instinct to protect your turf, is difficult.
Yeah.
But Dana dismantles that insecurity.
Okay, but I do have a question about the mechanics of that, though. Let's say I do bring in the donuts, or I share that Excel shortcut.
Okay.
But my internal motivation is completely self-serving.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing it because I know performance reviews are coming up, and I want the boss to see me as a team player. Does the intention matter? Or does the social glue fail if it's not purely altruistic?
That's a very realistic dilemma. But the beauty of the mechanism described in these texts is that the practice actually leads the intention.
Wait, really? So the act itself is enough?
Yeah. The act of giving, even if initially motivated by a slightly self-serving ego, forces you to practice the physical and mental mechanics of letting go.
Oh, I see. You're still parting with a resource, whether it's a secret technique or your time.
Exactly. Over time, the repeated friction of that practice wears down the ego. As you experience the positive social feedback, the internal selfishness naturally diminishes.
Because people instinctively gravitate toward generosity.
Right. The initial impure intention matures. As the habit deepens, the act rewires the motivation.
That is fascinating. Okay, so you initiate the bond by sharing. You bridge the gap with a snack, a piece of code, or forgiveness. But a single act doesn't sustain a relationship, right? You can't just hand someone a donut on Monday and expect to coast on that goodwill for the rest of the year.
Definitely not. Which brings us to the maintenance phase of the social glue. Once a connection is established through Dana, the primary vehicle for sustaining it daily is communication. This is the second principle, piyavaka.
Piyamaka, which translates to pleasant speech.
Right.
And your notes are extremely prescriptive about what qualifies as piyavaka. Words must be polite, sweet, sincere, and useful.
Yes, all four.
Furthermore, the text explicitly warns against sarcasm, rudeness, or divisive speech. The goal is to reduce conflict.
To create lasting positive impressions, yeah.
But when you really think about modern communication, especially like in Western cultures, sarcasm is practically our default mode of bonding.
It really is.
We use it as humor, as a defense mechanism, even as a way to show intelligence.
We do, but from a behavioral standpoint, sarcasm is inherently risky.
How so?
Well, it often requires the listener to quickly process a layered meaning where the literal words mean the opposite of the intent.
Oh, right. That cognitive jump.
Yeah. Neurologically, even when it's meant as a joke, subtle barbs or cynical remarks can trigger micro-responses in the amygdala.
The brain's threat detection center.
Yeah. Exactly. Over time, chronic sarcasm erodes psychological safety. Piyavaka asks us to elevate our daily speech by removing that ambiguity and potential for threat.
So it's about being direct and kind.
Yeah. It points to simple, everyday acts, like giving a highly specific, sincere compliment, not empty flattery,
Like instead of good job, saying, you structured the data in this report incredibly well today.
Exactly. Or making eye contact to say a genuine thank you for stepping in.
Okay, I agree with the underlying premise, but I really have to challenge the practicality of this in a high-stakes environment.
Go for it.
Polite and sweet sounds fantastic when the waters are calm. But what happens when things go wrong? Let's say a colleague completely botches a client presentation.
Right.
The account is at risk, and you have to do a postmortem. Does pleasant speech mean we resort to toxic positivity?
I see what you mean.
Do we just smile and say, great effort, everyone, while the ship is actively sinking, just to spare feelings?
That is the most common pitfall when interpreting these concepts, actually. And it's a vital distinction to make. We often conflate pleasant with passive or fake.
Right, which isn't helpful?
No. If we look closely at the source material's guidelines on giving warnings or criticism, it never advocates for ignoring reality. In fact, ignoring a problem violates one of the core criteria of Piyavaka.
Because it has to be polite, sweet, sincere, and useful.
Exactly.
And ignoring the sinking ship is definitely not useful.
Precisely. If it's not constructive, it's not Piyavaka. The principle is about the delivery of the hard truth, not the avoidance of it.
Okay, so it focuses on preserving the dignity of the person receiving the criticism.
Yes. If a presentation fails, you don't say, you were totally unprepared and humiliated us. That triggers defense mechanisms and destroys the bond.
So what do you say instead?
You say, I noticed we struggled with the client's questions on the third slide. Let's look at how we can better anticipate those concerns for the next pitch.
Oh, wow. You are clearly communicating the failure and your desire to fix it, but you are attacking the problem, not the person.
Exactly. Constructive speech builds up the situation. Destructive speech tears down the individual.
That distinction changes everything. I mean, I can actually think of a time I completely failed at this.
Oh, yeah.
I received an email from a vendor that had a massive error in it, and I was so stressed that I fired back a really snappy, sarcastic one-liner.
Oh, no.
I thought I was being efficient, but it ruined the working relationship for months. The vendor got defensive, communication slowed down, and everything became harder.
Yeah, that's the risk.
My lack of pia vaca literally dissolved the social glue, and I spent weeks trying to rebuild the trust that I broke in 3 seconds.
It's a perfect example of how fragile trust can be when we abandon constructive speech. So we use Dana to initiate the bond and pia vaca to maintain the psychological safety of the relationship.
Right. But eventually, words reach their limit. You can speak with absolute perfection, but if your actions don't align with your rhetoric, the trust evaporates.
Which transitions us from what we say to what we actually do. This is the third principle in your notes, athakaria.
Athakaria, or useful conduct.
Yeah.
So this is where we step into active, physical participation in the community.
This principle represents a shift from the conceptual space of shared ideas to the physical and practical reality of shared environments.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Athakaria involves utilizing your physical strength, your specialized skills, or your time to solve problems for others.
The practical examples your sources provided for this are incredibly grounding. It's not just about, organizing a massive charity gala.
No, not at all.
It's carrying bags for an elderly neighbor. It's noticing a coworker who is visibly drowning in tasks and stepping in to take something off their plate.
Before they even have to ask.
Exactly. It's the micro actions of civic duty, like sorting your recycling properly or picking up a piece of trash in a public park.
Those micro actions are vital because they combat what we might call main character syndrome.
Oh, I love that term.
Right. When you pick up a piece of trash that someone else dropped, you are physically acknowledging that you do not exist in a vacuum.
You are recognizing that you share this space with others.
Yes, and you are taking on a tiny fraction of the burden to make the environment slightly better for the next anonymous person who walks by.
It's a profound shift in perspective from what is my right to what is my responsibility.
Exactly.
And speaking of shared environments, here's where it gets really interesting. There is a detail in your notes regarding athakaria that absolutely blew my mind.
Oh, about the social media aspect.
Yes, because again, we are talking about an ancient framework, but the sources apply it to something wildly modern. They specifically list sharing accurate, beneficial information on social media as an act of useful conduct.
The brilliant contemporary interpretation of the principle.
It is literal digital hygiene. We traditionally think of public service as like adopting a highway and picking up litter.
Right.
But today, the most polluted space we inhabit isn't the highway. It's our digital ecosystem.
It's our social media feeds, our group chats.
Exactly. The notes frame the act of pausing to verify a sensational headline before you retweet it as a literal act of community service.
Or actively choosing not to spread misinformation.
Yeah, you are refusing to introduce cognitive pollution into the community's mental space.
Think about the sociological mechanism behind that. Misinformation is a social contagion. It triggers panic, anger, tribalism.
Keep division, yeah.
It is the ultimate solvent. It dissolves social glue faster than almost anything else. By practicing digital hygiene, you are actively protecting the psychological well-being of thousands of people you will never even meet.
You're acting as a filter rather than an amplifier for chaos.
Exactly. What athakaria truly does is bridge a critical gap. It extends the empathy we naturally feel for our close family outward.
Applying it to strangers in a park or, anonymous avatars reading our posts online.
It scales.
The generosity and care scale from your dining room table to the global internet.
It expands the perimeter of our perceived community.
Okay, so we have a pretty powerful toolkit here. We have giving Dana to initiate, pleasant speech pia vaca to maintain.
And useful conduct athakaria to prove our commitment.
Right. But I'm looking at this realistically. I can imagine myself executing all three of these flawlessly on a Tuesday morning when I've had 8 hours of sleep.
And conditions are optimal, right?
Exactly. My coffee is perfect, the sun is shining, I'm holding doors, I'm complimenting spreadsheets, I'm verifying my retweets.
Right.
But fast forward to Thursday afternoon, I'm exhausted, I'm stressed about a deadline, and suddenly I'm snapping at the barista and hoarding my work again.
Yeah, that happens to the best of us.
If I only practice these principles when I'm in a good mood, I'm just moody. No one is going to trust a community member whose empathy is dependent on their blood sugar.
You've identified the critical vulnerability of human nature right there. And it is exactly why the framework includes a fourth, binding principle.
Oh, okay.
Without it, the first three are just temporary behavioral spikes. The final principle is samanatata, which translates to consistency.
Consistency. The sources define this as being even-keeled, acting appropriately for your role, sharing in both the joys and the sorrows of others.
And crucially, never abandoning people when times get difficult.
Right. So samanatata is the long game of empathy.
Think about it like finance. They talk about the magic of compound interest, how small, consistent investments over a long period yield massive returns.
Oh, I like that.
Consistency is the compound interest of relationships. Trust isn't built by one grand gesture. It's built by the unglamorous, predictable reliability of your character over time.
And the application of this in your notes provides a real mirror to modern society, I think. It insists on treating everyone with equal respect, regardless of their status.
Yes.
Meaning the level of dignity and pleasantness you offer to the CEO of your company must be identical to the dignity you offer to the peer sitting next to you.
Which must be identical to the dignity you offer the service worker emptying your office trash bin.
Which is incredibly difficult because we are deeply conditioned by society to modulate our respect based on, proximity to power.
We reflexively flatter those above us and often render those below us invisible.
Yeah, it's terrible, but true.
But Samanatata argues that if your respect is conditional on a person's utility or rank, your character is inherently unstable. You aren't actually practicing pleasant speech, you're just practicing sycophancy.
Wow.
True social glue requires structural integrity. Your character cannot change shape simply because the power dynamics of the room have shifted.
I love the idea of that structural integrity, but again, I have to play the skeptic here.
Please do.
Demanding that kind of unwavering consistency, never snapping, always treating everyone equally, always filtering your words. I mean, it sounds superhuman. We aren't robots.
No, we definitely aren't.
If I have a terrible day and I completely fail at this, like I'm rude to a coworker or I ignore someone who needs help, does the whole thing fall apart?
You mean, does one mistake ruin everything?
Yeah. Is consistency like a fragile pane of glass where one crack shatters the whole window?
That is a very heavy burden to carry. And fortunately, the notes you provided offer a profoundly comforting counter to that anxiety.
Oh, thank goodness.
If we connect this to the bigger picture and look closely at the tip section provided at the end of the source material, we find what is essentially a behavioral cheat code.
A cheat code. Okay, I'm listening.
The framework does not demand flawless execution. It explicitly states that you do not have to master all four of these principles simultaneously. It acknowledges our human limitations.
So what is the cheat code? How do we build consistency without demanding perfection?
You simply start with one.
Just one.
Just one. The entire system is driven by a single underlying engine: empathy. The text defines the heart of this practice simply as the willingness to put yourself in others' shoes.
Okay.
If you consciously choose to focus solely on speaking a little more kindly, practicing piyavaka, something neurological happens. To speak kindly, you have to observe the other person.
Right. You start noticing their stress or their workload?
Exactly. That observation naturally triggers athakarya. You want to physically help them.
And then the act of helping them builds a shared bond, which lowers your ego.
Which makes you want to freely share your resources with them, Dana.
Oh, I see. Over time, cycling through these actions builds a resilient habit.
A bad day isn't a shattered window. It's just a temporary dip in a long-term investment portfolio. The trend line of your character is still moving upward.
It's a self-reinforcing loop. You just have to turn the key on the empathy engine, and the principles start feeding into each other.
Exactly. You don't have to be a saint. You just have to be willing to initiate the process.
So what does this all mean? When we step back and look at the entirety of the research you brought us today, it completely reorients how we think about solving the friction in our daily lives.
It really does.
We spend so much time waiting for massive top-down changes to fix our frayed society. But this framework proves that the power is incredibly localized.
Very much so.
By integrating microscopic daily acts, bringing a snack to a stressed team, giving a specific compliment that preserves dignity.
Pausing to verify a link before sharing it online.
Right, and greeting the barista with the exact same respect you reserve for an executive. You are actively manufacturing the social glue.
You are no longer just a passive observer surviving a stressful environment.
You are the architect, making that environment warmer, safer, and infinitely more resilient.
It is deeply empowering to realize that the emotional temperature of the spaces we inhabit is largely within our control.
It really is.
But before we conclude this deep dive, there is one final, rather provocative implication hidden within these sources that I want to leave you to ponder.
Okay, lay it on us.
Throughout our entire conversation, we have discussed applying Dana, Piyavaka, Ethicaria, and Samanatata to build harmony with our community, our friends, our colleagues, even the strangers we pass on the street. But what happens if you weaponize this empathy? What if you actively applied these 4 principles to someone you fundamentally disagree with or someone you actively dislike?
Wow. Applying the social glue directly to an adversary.
Exactly. Imagine offering the generosity of your knowledge or the charity of your forgiveness to a bitter rival.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
Imagine enforcing strict Piyavaka, speaking with sincere, constructive usefulness to someone whose worldview deeply angers you. Imagine demonstrating unwavering consistency and respect towards someone who, in your eyes, hasn't earned it.
Yeah, that's next level.
How might utilizing this ancient social glue in the very places where our social fabric is most violently torn reshape not just our immediate circles, but our highly polarized world?
It asks us to do the hardest thing imaginable.
But perhaps that is exactly where this toolkit is needed the most.
That is an incredibly powerful challenge to walk away with. Well, thank you so much for curating these notes and sharing them with us.
It's been a pleasure.
It has completely changed how I look at my own daily interactions, and we hope it equips you to go out there and start mixing up some of your own social glue. Keep diving deep, keep questioning the world around you, and we will catch you on the next one.